the number. As your rookie season here in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series coming to a close, is there something that really stands out as you look back on this season?
That sounds so dramatic.
Yeah,
well. No more rookie meetings. Well, that's not true. Apparently the rule book says that they decide when you're not a rookie anymore, so hopefully no more rookie meetings. And the biggest learning curve is usually the first year. So, the most has been learned this year, and I just look forward to the results improving. I look forward to better weekends, and that will, with hard work, happen over time. And so the first year is just about done.
Outstanding. Well, let's open it up to some questions here for the media. If you could raise your hand, call on you. We'll have mic runners come down. We'll start here with Kenny Bruce, then go over to Roger. Please state your name and affiliation, please.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Danica, as you look back on this year, can you sort of tell when you guys had issues, how much of it was part of your learning curve and how much of it was an issue with the car not being what you wanted it to be?
In a simple answer, I have no idea, and I think that's part of the problem in the first year for me, especially just, I was saying last night to one of my engineers that, we came and, we brought as good a stuff as we could here to this last race, and it's going a little bit better and practicing a little bit better. So I said, that's good, and it helps with me and my confidence because it's hard for me to know if it's me or the car or so I said that specific thing last night. And it's important to keep confidence up. So I said, this helps with me to be able to be more confident that we just need to do everything we can to be more prepared every single weekend from car and setup aspect. And, there just is a lot more natural speed in what we have out there this weekend. It feels like I feel potential to actually, the car doesn't feel right, yet we're okay. So it seems like sometimes throughout the year, the car has felt pretty good and it's not fast. And so I think that there's a tremendous amount that I still need to learn for sure, and a lot of stuff that I need to work on for making the weekends more smooth. Things like anticipating the changes that how big of changes need to happen from practice to qualifying and qualifying to the race, and the things that I need out of practice that result in a good race car. Those are all things that I need to learn. I need to be able to identify what's happening with the car better every time I'm in it so that I can help more. But at the end of the day, the natural speed that's in the car does need to continue to get better. And I think this weekend was a show of that, and so far to us. And I don't think that's a mystery. I think that, at the beginning of the year we struggled even more. So that's what's tough about Cup, is that you can't be a little off. You're a little off, and the difference between a good and a bad weekend is so much bigger than in the Nationwide Series or anywhere else. It's just the competition and the level of effort is so high, so you have to always be on your game.
Go to Roger, then to Bob, then over to Brian and Marty.
Roger Holtzclaw, Speedway Media. Danica, there's been a lot of debate over the past couple weeks about whether it's a good idea or not for Cup drivers to compete in the Nationwide Series, especially coming into this weekend when they're in the hopes for a title. Mm-hmm. Going into next season, do you plan on running some nationwide races, or if not, was that something you would like to do?
Yeah, I would like to do more nationwide races. I think 10 would be really nice to be able to do, to mix in some races that I feel like I just need more track time for overall on the weekend, to races that I feel like I can, finish well. I think that a mix of both of those would be a lot of fun and good for me. And I think that, you didn't necessarily ask, but I think that it is a good thing to have Cup guys be able to run in nationwide. I think it's really cool that you have to designate your series. I think that's great for the sport. It creates, it allows certain drivers to be able to get more publicity for their results. But most importantly, I think it allows Cup teams to be able to see what drivers in the Nationwide Series or the Truck Series for that matter, can do against the guys that go out and win in the Cup Series. I think that shows a lot about the drivers that they are, and it gives those Cup owners confidence in their ability. So, and it gives the drivers a good marker to what you need to do and how you need to run. So I think it's a good thing.
Go to Bob, then to Brian, then over to Marty Smith.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. I don't know if you're doing the December test or not, but beyond that,
I'm not. I'll be at the ACAs.
okay, so what do you do the next 6 or 7 weeks as far as trying to get better?
Take a few weeks off.
All right.
I mean, we're in the car 38 out of 40 weekends a year, and there'll be testing, and we'll get back into it. And I mean, I remember the days of, I think one year when I raced IndyCar, I think I was out of the car for 6 months. So this is just a blink. Next week or the week after is Thanksgiving, and then it'll be banquet and ACAs, and then it'll be GoDaddy Super Bowl commercials, and then their holiday party, and then it'll be the last 2 weeks of December, which will be Christmas, and then New Year's will come around, and we'll be in the car the second week of January. So time flies; it's not that long, and so I think that there's a lot of things at Stewart-Haas that are new and changing, and it'll be a good time for the teams and crews to recharge and also be able to start working with some of the new people we have involved in the team and work on the cars. I think that's something that we saw at the beginning of this year was that we've got to do whatever we can in the off season to get the cars to be faster and have more grip when next year starts. And so some of that comes from testing, but usually that's where it finalizes. A lot of times it gets done in the wind tunnel and in R&D and with engineers and crew chiefs thinking together, and then you usually go and take those things to the racetrack and see what really works. So it's usually kind of the final straw. So I have no doubt that we'll get to that, and I'm sure I'll find myself at Nashville a couple times next year at the beginning of the year, testing those things out, and then we'll be ready to start the season. So I think it goes by very quick.
We'll go to Brian, then to Marty, then back over here to Al.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Good morning, Danica. So with Mark Martin, I guess, coming on to be your go-to guy, input from what I understand, over next year, and then you've got all of these accomplished drivers at Stewart-Haas Racing as well. First, how do you expect Mark to assist, and then even beyond that, can you have too much input from all these different voices and sending you in so many different directions that you really have a hard time finding what's your feel?
Well, I don't think that you can ever have too much input. Maybe from person to person, they have different preferences of what they like, but I sure like it. I sure like hearing advice about what to do. It doesn't mean you go out and implement every single thing and try every single thing, but there's going to be a situation that comes up, and you're going to remember what somebody said, and you're going to try it. And so I like asking a lot of questions, and no different than me walking down pit lane last night for qualifying, and stopping by Mark's car and talking to him and asking what he's going to do for qualifying. And then we were just talking about, working on things for next year and how nice it is when there's natural speed in the car, and then you can work on little things to fine tune. So, sometimes it's not necessarily just about what do you do in the race car. Everybody's got their own style. Everybody's got their own way that they feel comfortable, and really there's no two drivers the same. So sometimes it just comes from having another driver's perspective on what things need to be worked on, and some of it's about driving, but a lot of it's also about team and about communication and about what we need to improve overall as a team from somebody like Mark Martin that has so much experience and has accomplished so much. He has seen a lot of different teams, and that's a great perspective. And so he's there to ask driving questions, but he's also there to just help overall from a team perspective.
Go to Marty, and then back over to Al.
Marty Smith, ESPN, over to your right. Good morning. How do
Sorry,
you?
I wish it was easier to tell where everyone was
it's
sitting.
a large room. It's all right. How do you define what Dario Franchitti was able to do during his career in a race car, and what stands out most to you about his career?
He came back to IndyCar and he sure won a lot. You know, he came to NASCAR after winning the championship and winning the Indy 500, and then he went back to IndyCar and won the championship and won the Indy 500. So I think it just his, you know, his ability and confidence and style and knowledge about open wheel cars and his love for it. And he was a great teammate. I really enjoyed being his teammate in 2007. We had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about how someone can be so good at setting up a car. He really was very good at that. And I'm sure that it was not a fun decision, but it was, at the end of the day, we race and it's our job and we love it, but you know, it's not worth risking your health for. And you know, I think it's admirable that he put that first. And I think he has nothing that he can look back on and think, I wish I coulda, shoulda, woulda done that. He did it. And it was, you know, he wanted to keep going and this is just my assumption, he wanted to keep going because he loves racing. And he didn't feel like he felt like he could still perform at the highest level. And so therefore he wanted to keep going. But his health is more important. And you know, like I said, I enjoyed being his teammate. He's an extremely talented and accomplished driver, and I'm sure he has more to contribute from a different perspective now. And you know, I wish him peace and all that, because I'm sure that it's not necessarily something he saw coming, but he's doing it, and good for him.
We'll go next to Al, and we'll go to this gentleman right here, and then we'll wrap it up with Woody in the back.
Yeah, Danica, Al Pierce with Auto Week. How much ribbing, either good-natured or otherwise, do you and Ricky do about Rookie of the Year? You keep up with points, you look at...
Not much ripping anymore, it's pretty obvious.
I mean, was there a point when y'all were sort of intensely rival about that particular thing?
No. I mean, I think that there was a certain level of sensitivity to it. It was, for sure, a long shot for me. I mean, it was going to need to be, you know, just a really good rookie season. And there were some really good things that happened. I mean, Daytona was a great way to start, and then it went to Martinsville that was a great run. And, you know, we just didn't really keep getting, we didn't really get a lot better. We got better, but there was, you know, challenges along the way. And he just came off of two nationwide championships. That was going to be tough to compete with no matter who you are. So, and, you know, I struggled to compete for wins, so you know it was going to be a huge accomplishment if I did it, but we didn't really have too much banter about it. I don't think. I think that it was just something we just didn't really talk about. We talked a lot more about the cars. We talked a lot more about team. We talked a lot more about just purely what happened that day. He spent a lot of times trying to cheer me up after I was so disappointed after qualifying or after a race sometimes. And I think, as he said, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I think it was just last night, something about being hard on myself. And he said, she's hard enough on herself already, doesn't need any more reason. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I get frustrated, and I know what I can do and want to do. And when it doesn't happen, I do get upset. So. But he was good moral support.
Hi, Danica. Evan Golden, Iron, South Florida, right here in front of you. We just completed the Daryl Gwynn Hot Rods and Reels charity fishing tournament downstairs by the infield, and the wheelchair that was given was customized after yourself. And I just wanted to know how it feels that you just gave the gift of mobility, independence, and freedom.
I can't imagine what that's like. I don't know, but I can only imagine that it's a freeing feeling. It's an exciting feeling. And just from my perspective, it's very cool that I, you know, can be a part of things like that, being in my position. So it's an honor, and I'm sure it was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
We'll finish up here in the back with Woody.
Woody Kane, Motor Racing Network. Danica, I was just curious, even if it's not necessarily competition related, a couple of your favorite moments from the year.
Not competition. That would mean basically in the whole year of 2013, what were my favorite things? Probably being able to hit a golf ball off the tee box was a pretty fun thing for me this year, learning how to do that. You can't imagine how many strokes it takes when you can't get it off the tee box. It just takes a long time. I'm not going to put a 10 down every time. I just don't have it in me, so I put smiley faces. Learning how to golf. I mean, qualifying on the pole for the Daytona 500 and all that happened around it was a great way to start the year. You know, and just having family around on the weekends, race weekends. This one's going to be another one of them. Both of our families will be down, and you know, Ricky's dad made me breakfast this morning. I don't normally let people make me breakfast. I have a very particular breakfast, but that's fun. And my parents and sister and her husband get here today, so you know, just having everybody around and having fun on the race weekends and making dinner together and hanging out outside the bus, making breakfast. Just having everybody around. It's been really fun.
Well, Danica, thank you for coming in today, and good
Oh yeah,
luck this
Martinsville
weekend.
Run was pretty fun too. I mean, I can't forget about that one at the beginning of the year.
Outstanding. It's go time.
It's go time now. All right, thanks guys. Have a great winter. It's nice talking to you. I'll talk to you again in a few short weeks.
Morning, everyone. If I can have your attention, please. My name is Lenny Santiago with Daytona International Speedway. Thank you for joining us today. With me today is Joey Chitwood III, President of Daytona International Speedway, who will provide an update on our exciting Daytona Rising project. Daytona Rising is a $400 million reimagining of an American icon. It'll create a modern motorsports stadium with premium fan amenities, including wider seats, more comfortable seats, twice as many restrooms, 3 times as many concession stands. It'll also feature added conveniences like 11 football field-sized social areas that we call neighborhoods, 40 escalators and 14 elevators to help people get around the facility, 1,600 video screens, Wi-Fi, and a lot more. The project will be completed in time for the 2016 racing season, and for more information, I encourage you to visit www.daytonarising.com, where we also have webcams available so you can watch the construction in progress. With that, I'd like to turn it now over to Joey Chitwood. Joey?
Thanks, Lenny. I appreciate it. It's been 4 very long months so far in terms of preparing for Daytona Rising. A lot of work's occurred, and we wanted to bring some images to explain to everyone what it really takes to build the structure to support all the new grandstands that we're adding, concourses, all those levels. So in front of you, we've got a number of images that I want to walk you through. I'm going to define for you what a pile is and what a pile cap is, because that's the concrete support structure that will be in place to add all the steel and all the other elements to. So the images to my right, the images to your left, 3 images show you what a pile is. A pile is an 18-inch diameter, 35-foot deep hole in the ground in which we fill with concrete. That provides the support to then build a pile cap on. A pile cap is reinforced rebar, 85 separate pieces, that also has 7-foot long, 12 2.5-inch diameter bolts that the steel would attach to. This starts the basics of concrete foundations in the ground. So we look to your right, my left. A couple other images show you then the concrete that goes around these piles that are underneath this pile cap. Well, I asked the engineers, how many pounds does it take to put concrete in the ground? What are we doing? We came up with some numbers for you. It actually will take 138 bags of 60-pound concrete to build 1 pile. There are over 2,500 piles in the project. That represents 8,220 pounds per pile. When you multiply that by the 2,500 that are in the property, we have over 20 million pounds of concrete in piles alone on the property. Now, with all of those piles to provide the support of a pile cap, a pile cap is 22 cubic yards of concrete. To put it in perspective, a pile was 2 cubic yards of concrete. So when you actually take that 22 cubic yards and you put it in 474 pile caps, you have close to 45 million pounds of concrete in pile caps alone. Right now, we have 65 million pounds of concrete in the ground that we've done over the last 4 months to be prepared to attach steel to actually build the structure. Now, to say that that number was impressive, it surprised me to the point that I didn't believe it. I can't believe in 4 months we've done that work. So, you know, in this age of internet, I decided to Google concretecalculator.com. And who knew there is a website that has concretecalculator.com on it, and I actually plugged in my own numbers to verify that we put 65 million pounds of concrete in the ground. Again, a number that is just phenomenal. But when you think about spending the $400 million, it's impressive that we've done that much work to date. To put that in perspective, we actually put 50,000 tons of asphalt on the property when we repaved Daytona. That's 100 million. So at this point, we're 65% of the way there as to the asphalt that went into the repaving of Daytona a couple years ago. But that's only after 4 months. Over the next year and a half, there's going to be additional concrete that goes in terms of concourses and other areas around the property. So those images in front of you, the 3 to my right, your left, and the 2 on the far end to your right, my left, kind of show you what it takes to build a pile cap, and then that's the structure that we'll support. One of the other unique things that we're doing right now is to get ready to actually manage the crowd for Speed Weeks. And so we call this race-ready preparation. And so the image directly to my left, the first one to your right, shows an overhead of the Daytona International Speedway. And more importantly, it shows you where the grandstands will be in the future construction, where the injector gates will be, but also it shows you the temporary gates that we've had to build to manage the crowd for all of the events in January, February, and March. There'll be no changes to the seating manifest in 2014. It's how we get you to your seat that'll be the unique elements. What we had to do to start this process is actually disconnect all of the water and sewer so we could do the underground work. We have moved all of the ticket gates about 300 yards away from the stadium itself. And what you can see from that image is a paved walkway that goes from that temporary ticket gate all the way into the stadium. And so what we've been able to do is separate you from the construction area. But what'll happen, you're basically walking through a chute with construction to your left and to your right as you enter the property. And there will be work that still occurs in those areas, probably early in race week and some of the other days, but this is a way to separate our fans from the construction, but also they're going to get probably the best view of construction to date. Some of the things that we're doing right now, it's not just the installation of the temporary gates, it's the fencing that goes around it, the paving of the walkways to get you there, directional signage to make sure that fans know which gate to enter and where they're going, the landscaping and lighting. We also had to reinstall all of the water and sewer lines to get everything ready. We had to create temporary locations for hospitality, whether it's the 1876 Club or general hospitality. We have to build temporary kitchens for our AmeriCrown caterer. We actually have to create a temporary lobby for the Sprint Tower elevators. We demolished those buildings early on in the process. We're widening the pedestrian areas next to the DIS tour building. We have to reestablish power and connectivity to all the ticket gates. We use technology to scan the tickets, so we have to get that up and running again. And then also just make sure from an existing grandstand perspective that we're ready to manage the customers. Again, more paving, more wireless, more routes to get you there. So really what you have in front of you are 2 distinct things. One is the construction and now the operation. Our Race Ready program, I can tell you the document is probably 8 or 9 pages long of all of the activities that have to occur to get back into operation mode. But I think from the image to my left, your right, it just shows you how massive the structure is, what it'll take to operate the venue the first 3 months of the year, but wanted to give you a little bit of color on what it's going to take to build it. And hopefully the 65 million pound number impresses you as it did us. So with that, Lenny, I'd be happy to take some questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Joey. We'll take questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. We've got mic runners in the crowd that'll come to you. Please state your name and affiliation. We'll start up here with Reed. If we can get a microphone up here, please.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. How complicated was it to figure out how to do the ongoing work and continue to conduct all the events up until 2016? Did you use computer programming to figure that stuff out?
If I were to show you the actual construction schedule, and so I might have an 8 or 9 page document as it relates to what Race Ready Preparations Daytona has, but the novel that Barton Mallow has as it relates to the lockstep process to follow is almost unconscionable. The fact that there's that much that has to get done. It also reinforces why it's 2.5 years to get there, because of these windows of time that we cannot construct on the property. And so a lot of man hours, a lot of attention to detail, a lot of meetings between Daytona and Barton Mallow, and it's still ongoing. We've got 14 figured out. There's still some elements in 15 that we're working through based on the timing of construction. We've built some days in, meaning we're ahead of schedule right now, which is great, but you never know where you're going to be like middle of 14 or into 15. It could change that schedule. 14 without a seating manifest change, we look okay. 15, we will have some seating challenges because we'll have new seats and old seats at the same time. We're actually working through a process right now on relocating fans that would be affected for the 15 Daytona 500. But it's not just running the property, it's making sure that everybody knows what's going to happen come event time. We want to make sure that we do a good job because it's going to be challenging enough with construction and operation. We've got to make sure that we've got a dialed-in plan just from a guest services perspective. When you communicate to the customer on how the route might be different to get to your seat when you've gone through that gate for the last 20 years and it's not in the same location. So it's not just the plan, it's how we're communicating the plan. And today actually we started that process as well.
Mike Hembry, Athlon Sports. I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned a little bit about 15, but what's your estimation of how this will look for February 15? And how much, if any, did you have to dial back from the original grand plan when some of the state stuff didn't work out?
I think you're going to be blown away by the steel that you see in 14, because we have steel coming up out of the ground right now and pretty high at this point. 15, you will see more steel, the skeleton of the grandstand itself. It will be very substantial at that point. The things that we had to dial back in the program is really the midway area and some of the areas outside of the injectors and the gates and those elements. So those were the elements that we scaled back. We are going to go to Tallahassee again and talk to the legislature about a potential partnership, so we've not given up on that. We think that the investment that we're making and how other sports teams are treated in Florida, I think that we deserve some fair treatment. So we're going to go back to talk about that, and if provided that opportunity, we'll look at the scope again and see if we can enhance it with some of the midway areas and the elements that we had to cut out.
Okay, next we'll go to Dwight, then over to the right, and then we'll come back to George. Dwight?
Dwight, racetake.com. Joey, what is about the entire project, what has impressed you the most so far, and what do you think fans, once it's complete, what do you think the fans are going to be most impressed by when they walk into this incredible facility?
I think without a doubt, just the magnitude of it. As we've shown images back in February when we did our first press conference, but now to start to understand that there's 65 million pounds of concrete in the ground and to see the steel structure right now, our staff is impressed that it's so high and it's so big. I think our fans are going to be blown away at the magnitude of what it takes to rebuild the entire front stretch grandstand at Daytona International Speedway. It's not just replacing the seats. It's a brand new structure that's probably goes from the current grandstand about halfway to International Speedway Boulevard. And so the diagram, again, to my left, starts to give you a sense of how big it is. For us, the speed with which we've gotten the concrete in the ground and the fact that steel is coming up out of the ground now is pretty impressive. I'm not sure I thought there'd be this much activity or activity enough that's pretty impressive to talk about this early on after 4 months.
Over to the right and then to George.
Richard Newton, San Francisco 49ers are saying they have the state-of-the-art that they're building, a lot of technology. Instead of having more vending stations, now you can, when the new stadium opens, the hot dog will be delivered to your seat. What kinds of technological innovations similar to what the 49ers are doing will be happening at Daytona?
Well, actually, when you think about it, if you think about innovation, I'm not sure anybody has been able to actually build a venue and operate it for 2 years at the same time. The luxury of building across the street or a new location, actually, I'd like that right about now, not having to worry about race-ready preparations and operate at the same time. What we try to do is look at all of these new stadiums and venues out there, understand what really is a great fan amenity there, but how do we marry it into the motorsports world? What's important in our world that's different than a football game or a basketball game? And so technology is a key. We understand that. And so being connected, looking at our social zones, these 11 football field-sized neighborhoods that provide all of the amenities and the ability to actually interact socially. That's where all your F&B and merch and other elements are. The wider seats, the ability to have escalators in which we have none. It's taking all of those things that seem to be working now and marrying it into our world, and that's going to be a big deal for us. When you take a 50-year-old property and realize that you've done such a good job with it, but at this point it needs some love and care. I think we're excited that we've got a great plan in place. And we've seen a lot of new venues in the state of Florida go in, whether it's Amway Arena in Orlando, some folks in Tampa, obviously the Dolphins Stadium. They've done a lot of work to it the last couple years. We like good examples that we can copy and incorporate into ours. And unfortunately, though, for us, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, we are the ones who are funding this. We're not getting state subsidies. We're actually the ones making this investment. I think that's all the more impressive about where we think the sport is going, and the fact that we're putting our flag in the ground and saying it's not going to go anywhere. We're going to invest $400 million in the Daytona International Speedway, the biggest investment our company has ever made in anything. I think that's how strong we feel about the future of the sport and really the quality of the Daytona 500 itself.
Yeah, George Diaz, Orlando Sentinel, getting a little bit off track here with Daytona Rising. Mike Helton was talking the other day about it's not necessarily set in stone about the NASCAR's chase schedule moving forward, maybe moving some pieces around. Would you be open to the idea of future if the opportunity came to move the summer race and maybe incorporate your nice new track into the chase? I mean, what are your thoughts, or are you more the traditionalist that will stick with what we have?
George, I would tell you this. I think that any answer I might give to that question is probably going to get me in a little trouble. Look, we want to do what's good for the industry, and I applaud NASCAR for making the investment in the competition and the improvements they're starting to see. I think us jumping in and making the same types of investment improvement to the fan amenity side, I think both sides of the street, NASCAR and ISC, are focused on the right thing, which is about the fan. Great competition, great amenities, a great experience. As it relates to Daytona and its placement in the schedule, I'm open to anything that makes sense for our fan. And NASCAR would have to be a part of that. So definitely something to think about. Right now, though, in terms of short term, it's all about getting this ready by January of 16 because we have no choice but to be there. Now, we're well experienced with that, and when we had the repave, we had no choice but to be ready by the season before. We're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to do a great job. We'll get the construction done. We'll be ready by January of 16. Schedule, that'll be secondary as to getting the property done.
Any additional questions? Joey, any closing remarks?
I'd just like to reiterate one thing, and that is, as you look at the sport and where we're heading and the commitment NASCAR has made in terms of competition and the drivers and what we're trying to do on that side, I think that Daytona and the International Speedway Corporation are doing the same thing on the fan amenity side. We all understand the challenges getting our fans to attend live sporting events, and so whether it's the competition side through NASCAR, whether it's the amenity side through Daytona and International Speedway Corporation, it's a commitment to give fans the best experience possible. And so I'm proud that I work at a company that has stepped up to the plate and is making the largest investment in its company's history to live up to that side of the bargain. So I'm pretty impressed. I'll give you another update in Speed Weeks. We're going to talk about steel then, and a lot of steel at that point. So be ready. And for everyone else out there, if you go to DaytonaRising.com, we've got a number of webcams up in which you can actually manipulate the cameras and look at all the construction to date. I think you'll be impressed, but come February, it's going to blow you away.
Thanks, Joey, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I did have one quick reminder for everyone. We announced yesterday that tickets for Preseason Thunder, which is rapidly approaching, go on sale Monday. Admission to the NASCAR test sessions, $25 for Thursday's Sprint Cup Fan Fest, and $15 to view Friday's testing. For the Nationwide Series testing, Saturday and Sunday tickets are $10 each. Children 12 and under are free. Fans can call 1-800-PIT-SHOP for tickets and to reserve spots for the autograph session. And in closing, there are 99 days left before Daytona 500. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.